and welcome to another episode of Lunch and Learn with Vince. I'm Vince Marino, your host. And my special guest today is Asad Malik from Emerson. Asad, welcome and tell us a little bit about yourself and what are we going to talk about today?
Thank you, Vincent, for having me. My name is Asad Malik and I'm based in Knoxville and Tennessee. I've been working with Emerson for 14 plus years. Before moving to Knoxville, United States, I spent almost 15 years in the Middle East. So let's talk about my background. I did my mechanical engineering back in Pakistan. And then after graduating, I moved to Middle East and Saudi Arabia, working with in different industries. And then I joined Emerson in January 2008 as a training manager and spearheaded the training department back in Middle East based in Dubai. And then I moved on from training manager to the life cycle and the BD. And finally, I was sales leader in Middle East for the reliability solution, which includes the machinery health management and the instrumentation health. And after taking that role, I was relocated to Knoxville in July 2018, almost 4 years ago, in the sales enablement department in Knoxville. So presently, I'm working as a senior manager sales development based in Knoxville.
When you say development, can you tell me particularly what we're going to be talking about today that you guys are in development of, or what products we're going to focus on today?
Yeah, so in sales enablement, that's, if you see in generally in organization, it's like a budding department. It's a new concept. It's between the technology, the product, who are developing the product, and then the outside sales. So we are in between. So we take the market feedback, talk to our product managers, also give them the feedback, participate in the NPD, in the project cycle when we are developing the new product. So once the product is ready for the market, then we take that product, work on providing some sales strategies, developing some sales tools, playbooks, presentations, sales positioning, and then we take a planning of its launching to our sales channels around the globe. So it's very interesting role because we are working, taking in the feedback from the customers and then working with the technology. And then there's a lot of new things going on all the year. Sometimes we are participating in the boot camps, and sometimes we are in the road shows, and sometimes we are going to the event, attend the customer events. And the reliability product itself is, there are two main product lines, I would say. One is machinery health management. The other one is device and instrumentation health management. These are the two product lines in our reliability solution, which is under a system and solutions, which is a bigger part of our automation, Emerson automation solutions, under the control automation system, which is our Delta V system as a DCS system.
Okay, so typically I like to hear stories or analogies of how you were able to help somebody. We don't necessarily have to name the name of the company, but an overall picture or image of what the challenge was before you walked in and how you presented some kind of a resolution solution to the challenge at the client level. And also, it's important to know if the product was in place to begin with, what the issue was, whether the product was there or whether the product was part of the solution, or because in some instances, you just have somebody that was walking into a proverbial wall with challenges, and the product itself created the solution. Other times, the product is installed, but the product is either being misused or underutilized, and through conversing with the customer, you can develop some resolution there. And so, take me through either and or both type of scenarios.
Yeah, Vince, I have many stories. These years that we have been working with the customers, solving their challenges, helping solving their problems, and helping them with the different solutions. So, I mean, I'll start with one of, it's a very interesting case study because we started from scratch and they moved to really on the top quartile, the top performance companies. One of the fertilizer companies back in Middle East, so we were doing some reliability workshops for education for the customers. And the engineer came to me and he said that we have been using technologies, but we were not able to find any fault. We normally know the problem and it's just we have a time frame for a few hours or few days. And I said, man, this is not predictive technology. Predictive technology should provide you information well in advance, weeks or months in advance to plan. So I think there is something wrong. So he said, okay, I want to try the Emerson technology and just want to compare by myself rather than you guys come and explain you. And I believe seeing and believing. I say, absolutely. So we gave them one product just for portable measurements, and they kept it for 1 month. They started comparing using with some other their products. And then after 1 month, they came back to us and they say that this product has given us some of the information well in advance on some of the bearing and some of the lubrication problem. And the reason I was very much confident for that, because we have very specific built-in Emerson patent technology used for detecting high frequency faults, which are mainly in the bearing, the rolling element bearings, which is called PeakVue, which was developed more than 25 years ago. And it's Emerson patent was developed here in Knoxville. I'm in the office I'm sitting today. So they use that technology, and that technology helped them to find lubrication or bearing related problems weeks and sometimes months in advance. And then they compared those with some other tools which they had been using at that time. And there was a very clear difference in signals. They appreciated it. They bought the system. They implemented it. They have gone through some training with us. And within 2 to 3 years, they were having a very good insight into their machines. The guy, he worked with me. We wrote a paper. They did a balancing on one of the rotating assets, and then their superintendent, he presented a case study was on a turbine where they were able to find the fault well in advance on the thrust bearing, which they had in the past couple of incidents where that bearing failed and they have to shut down that turbine, and it was very expensive. So they really came up with 2-3 case studies. With me, we presented in Emerson User Exchange, and one of the case study was selected best in class for that specific category in Emerson User Exchange. So their journey, starting from very basic vibration analysis, and then we take them to other online protection and prediction system for vibration monitoring in that specific plant. And they became like a loyal customer and very, very happy customer for Emerson. I mean, that's really one of the stories. I have so many other different stories, but as we talk through, you can feel me to ask any questions.
So you mentioned PeakVue?
PeakVue. It's PeakVue, which basically collects the peak signal and hold that signal. It's a very patent technology used by Emerson in all of our reliability vibration monitoring system.
Right. Do you have a visual picture of PeakVue? Anything that we can pull up to take a look at?
I can, absolutely, not a problem. Let me share a screen, and I think that will be, sometimes we say this, seeing is believing, so I'll show that. I believe you see my screen. Do you see my screen, Vince?
I do. I'm just adjusting where we are on the screen a little bit so I'm not covering up any vital information. Let me do this. Okay. All right. Yes, please continue.
Right. So the PeakVue, very specific technology, patent technology, and it's a very special method of separating very high frequency data from, which is also called as a stress wave, from the low frequency. Now, the low frequency faults are like unbalance, misalignment, looseness. These are normally picked through the velocity spectrum, and different products can be used. Now, when it comes to very specific high frequency information, and those frequencies which are very, very short duration, those in bearings specifically. So those, we use a specific filter in it. And maybe next slide, I can show about that a little bit more, how it uses. And if you see, the sampling rate of that technology is around 100,000 samples in 1 second. Now, the normal vibration data collection, they use around 2,500 to 5,000 samples. So PeakVue Plus uses a very, very high sampling rate, which is 20 times more the normal velocity data collection. And if you see on the screen, this is the samples, the method of sampling. So any short duration peak comes in, it will detect and it will hold that peak as it is. So these are few things very specific to the PeakVue, using a very high sampling rate, using specific technique inside, then using high pass filter to bring that data to the analyst in such a way that that data is trendable. And I have one very interesting, this one is basically was presented by one of our customers in Emerson User Exchange. And this slide itself really explains very well about the PeakVue technology. The blue line is the normal vibration analysis line, and you will not see much of jump in that. It's just a stable, and even it's not going close to that warning or the alert for yellow and the red. But on the red line, you see that's the trend of the PeakVue. Now, they started trending the fault on that bearing, and starting from, you see, from the number of days at certain stage, they were clearly able to diagnose now when the bearing is going to fail. Now, when we are talking about the rolling element bearing, normally they have 4 stages of failure: stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. After stage 3, actually, it's now the bearing become unpredictable. It can fail now and it can fail tomorrow. You cannot predict. If you get that predictive knowledge at that stage, it's already too late. The purpose of all these predictive technologies is to know the bearing or these related to lubrication fault at stage 2, sometimes stage 1, but 1 and 2, so that you have good time like months or weeks to plan, because breakdown are very expensive. You need to change resources. Sometimes the parts are not available. So the earlier the information, the better it is to avoid any failure. So that's just one of the case studies. Even if someone can Google on PeakVue or PeakVue on the YouTube, they will find so many different videos available and the case study presented by customer. And I shared something on LinkedIn once. There was some discussion going on, and we wrote that PeakVue can help you to find problem weeks in advance. And one customer replied to it, and he said, no, not weeks in advance, mostly months in advance. So they were so satisfied with the use of that, they commented that PeakVue is really giving you the indication of the problem well in advance.
Interesting. So tell me a little bit more about this. I mean, I'm just a regular guy, okay? The blue line to me looks like things are great.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this red line and things are damaging at the same time that I'm getting the false impression that everything's fine.
Exactly. And that was exactly happening in that fertilizer plant, because they were saying, we are seeing everything is fine. And all of a sudden we receive a message, oh, this bearing is now making a noise, and we go and we need to shut down the machine. Now, Vince, this another a little bit interesting thing is, if you go and the machine is making sound and you can hear with your ear, it means you have already crossed the stage third. You are at very close to the stage four or damaging that machine or bearing. The old school guys, and I used to do that when there was not much technology, use a screwdriver to get that sound. Now, our ear have a certain range of frequencies which we can detect. So
Yes.
we are talking about high frequency and low duration at frequencies to find it as early as possible, which we cannot hear with our ear or by putting screwdriver. And that's where the technology PeakVue, and we even do have a PeakVue Plus that we can talk about later, but PeakVue is that technology which helps you to find those information, those frequencies at very early stage so that you can plan your maintenance, because breakdown is very expensive. I have data to maybe share later on the
Yeah, well, actually, I'd like to go down that rabbit hole if I can, and just ask you, pre-PeakVue, company X was experiencing how much cost and how much was the financial impact after installing PeakVue? I mean, is it something that, yeah, here you go. It looks like you have some measurements here. I'm going to move
Yeah,
our little, I'm
right. And
moving us
this,
out of the way a little bit here.
no problem. And this was
Okay.
published in one of the magazines. I published it, How to Avoid Breakdown Cost with PeakVue. This is the actual data from one of the refineries in the Middle East, where they got this data from their CMMS system, the Oracle system, that in the first case, the bearing, they replaced the bearing because of they were monitoring with the PeakVue, and the bearing started in first to second stage. They arranged a planned maintenance, they replaced the bearing, and all the cost because of the computerized system was loaded on the CMMS system, and the total cost for that replacement was $6,750. The same machine in the past had failed, and the same bearing was failed on that machine, and the cost of replacement for that bearing was $43,500. And now this unplanned downtime cost does not include the production loss. This is the cost which they have to pay by probably arranging the crane to replacement, arranging the crew, paying the overtime, and then sometime when you have this breakdown, rather than 2 people, you want to put 3 or 4 people to complete their job as much as possible. But 25 to 50% of the resources you just waste even before you reach to start the dismantling and of the machine. So in the second case, you see is the same. It's very similar. Same bearing with the PeakVue indication was replaced in like $5,400, and when it was failed, it was $27,000. So the ratio between the breakdown cost and the planned maintenance cost were like 5, and some of the cases really they noted like a 10 times more expensive to repair a failed asset. And just imagine the opportunity loss if that asset is not producing. It means somebody else is taking in the marketing and get in the market and selling their product because you are not able to sell or provide that product to the market. And that's the opportunity loss, which normally is not calculated in these. So really unplanned downtime is very, very expensive when we talk about the
Absolutely.
expense. Yeah.
So can we get a look at the actual PeakVue device or product? Do you have the actual equipment, how that looks on an attached piece of equipment? You have that?
Right. Yeah. I can share. I have even some case studies, very interesting case
Yeah, I'd love to
studies.
see these. And
Yeah.
this is the kind of thing that inevitably every time I do a lunch and learn, my main focus and my goal is to preserve information for the future. Hopefully someday somebody will search on YouTube for
Yep.
a solution like this and find this a valuable resource. So the only way to do it is really to just talk through it. So I'm looking at a device on the right screen here. It's a little cylindrical device. Is
Yes,
that the,
right. So PeakVue is a technology which is built into our product. So this is, I'm showing just one of the many other products. But this one, why I'm showing, because it's a wireless vibration monitor. You can install it very easily. You will save project costs in terms of the cabling and all other arrangements. You can use magnet, or you can screw it on the bearing exactly where you want to collect the reading. Now, this is actual case study. And before I go into the PeakVue, I also want to talk about, because you will see somewhere here in the PeakVue Plus. So the PeakVue Plus is part of analytics built in by Emerson, so that any person who has not much advanced or category 2 level of experience in vibration analysis can easily understand. And let me take you through this example, and you will see, fine, even you are not a vibration analyst, but you can, while looking into that graph, you can say, oh yeah, I can understand there is a problem. Now, this one of the power producer, they bought this wireless vibration monitor, they install on the machine, and this was on one of the cooling water pump motor. Once they install, and if you see on the lubrication severity, most of you can see the graphs are green except lubrication severity, which is showing red. Now, even you have no experience in vibration analysis, but by looking into C and into the PeakVue, you can see there is a problem in this machine. Either it's a lubrication or maybe the bearing. So that's the information which we want our operators to get. This can be used as an operator dashboard, and then they can call their maintenance crew to see, okay, they can go and do some exception analysis. And if you see on the right-hand side, this is more for the vibration experts. You see on the green, basically is a waveform where it's impacting, and this impacting is around 7 Gs. And now, based on from the left hand, they say there's a problem in the lubrication. And luckily for this motor, the bearings were not sealed, and there were some positions available to grease. So they send the technician, he greased the bearing. After the greasing, you can see on the bar chart, it moved into the green over here after greasing, and this blue line shows the whole impacting due to lubrication, random noise was reduced. So the vibration from 17 Gs reduced to around 4 or 5 Gs. So that was a very quick return on investment. Now just imagine, by installing one device, and this device has a triaxial sensor, it can take vibration from vertical, horizontal, and axial. Sitting in your office or in your house, you can get that information readily available, and it's more of a analytics type of information that even if you are not really expert, you can say, is it a problem with the lubrication or bearing or some other issues, and then you can use your crew on the right job rather than they spend a lot of time in diagnosing what's going on. So that's PeakVue Plus, which is our new analytics part of the PeakVue. And maybe during our conversation, I will give you a quick detail of what is in this background happening to bring this.
Sure,
Yeah,
go ahead. Let's just dive right in right now. I'm loving this. So that device that you were showing though is magnetically attached, or it can be attached virtually anywhere on the rotating equipment.
Absolutely, it can be magnetically attached or it can be screwed. There are different ways you can install it over there. Not
interesting. Yeah. It makes me wonder why virtually every piece of moving equipment doesn't have that on there, or something similar, to monitor, instead of just waiting for the screwdriver technique later, which means that it's too far gone. So yeah, I would certainly I would imagine more of your high value items are necessarily needed, but virtually anything could utilize that and benefit from it.
Yes, and Vince, that's really I would say interesting time for the industry. If you ask me 10 years, 15 years ago, the wireless technology, pervasive sensing was not mature enough. And now, really, these wireless devices can reduce that, uh, I would say, from moving from bottom performers to the top performers, that time frame can be reduced by using these different wireless technologies and getting insight. And people are not really much interested, especially the new millennials as well as the new people coming to the industry. They don't really want to go to collect the routes. So, and I will share you, last week we were with the customers in one of the seminars, and the person was, that engineer was talking to me, and he said, was saying that, and because I talked to them, okay, what are really your challenges? I want to know so that maybe we can help you. And he said, one of my challenges is schedule compliance. I don't have much people to go to the site and bring this data by manually collecting. And I'm 85% of that. And 15% means I'm missing 15% of the machines. And I have 5,000 machines. So 15% of 5,000 machines, that you have no visibility to those machines. And I'm talking about those routes, which normally we go once in a month, sometime after second month. So just see that sitting in office, we are totally blind. Now, these wireless technology, especially the wireless vibration monitor, can reduce. And he was really talking about installing those sensors like 2000s, because he said, I really cannot meet that schedule compliance. So I need to put on 2000 of the assets so that I can spare time and doing more of analysis. So I explained him about the PeakVue Plus analytics, how it works. And let me explain you also what's happening behind the scene. Okay. And all this we are doing. Now, if you see on the vertical is the PeakVue signal, which I was explaining the impacting, but on the horizontal, I have repeatability of the signal. Is it a random noise or is it repeating? Periodicity of that signal, is it low and high? Now, if the PeakVue impacting is low and the repeatability of the signal is low, that means the machine is good. So that's very simple. But now, as the impacting increases, like in the previous chart, I was showing the green impacting was really on 70, but the repeatability of is not much, it's low, then mean that is a lubrication problem. Now, if we have a low impacting but high repeatability of that signal is repeating on that same frequency, and that impacting is even low, that means there is a bearing problem, but lubrication, there is no problem. But this is at early stage. Now, think of a situation when you have a high impacting, but low repeatability of that and a high repeatability of that signal. It means now you move from early stage to the advanced stage. And that's all, everything is happening behind the scene of the PeakVue Plus. And let me explain you now on this chart. If you see on the left-hand side, high impacting, low correlation, which I was talking to you in, that is equal, means that there is a under lubricated bearing, and you will see over here the lubrication severity, but bearing, there is no damage. Now, in the second scenario, we have a high impacting, but also very high correlation. That means that probably the lubrication is great, but although in spite of good lubrication, the bearing is damaged. Now, the left-hand side is more of an analyst type, and if I remove that, you win as, let's say you have no knowledge of vibration. If you look into this green, yellow, red, you can also tell what's the problem. And that's what PeakVue Plus is doing behind the scene to give analytics, prescriptive analytics to the operators or to the maintenance people or condition monitoring people, so that they can distinguish between lubrication and bearing problem and address it separately to fix. And the previous, my case study where there was a problem in the lubrication, but the bearing was good, they greased the bearing and the machine was running fine.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I want to show you one more case study now, because now this is asset monitor, which is comparatively for the semi-critical machines. You can have around 12 channel. Like in the wireless vibration monitor was a small one with you can have a 3x one sensor, but plus temperature, but it can have 12. Now this is again a case study with the help of PeakVue Plus. And if you see on your left-hand side on the lubrication chart, alignment, bearing, looseness, all green. Balance is green, blade pass frequencies are green, but lubrication is red. And all this is because of PeakVue Plus. So luckily they had a portable analyzer. They used it for exception analysis and they found there was impacting. And now in this case, unfortunately, the bearing was sealed. So they have to replace the bearing. They have to actually replace the whole motor. Then they have to change the motor. They can also replace the bearing also, but they have to stop. So they really need a stoppage. There was no way to grease the bearing while the machine was running. So they have to replace it. But after replacing the bearing, they rechecked it again with the asset monitor. And if you see, the lubrication is now green. So all other indications were already green. And even if they were not much expert on vibration analysis, they can immediately get idea on this from the prescriptive that really there is no problem because all of their indications with the help of this prescriptive analytics is showing are green. So very, very helpful. It's really resonating with the customer needs, and I have received very good feedback whenever we have been talking to the customer who had been using PeakVue in the past. They like the PeakVue Plus, and PeakVue Plus is built in all the softwares as well as in the hardware. And if you see, these screens are basically these are like a software dashboard they can use. With this AMS Asset Monitor, they just need an IP address and they can log in and they can see live data and they don't need a software. But if really they want to store some of this information for history, they can use our AMS MachineWorks for the software as a software to keep that data safe over there.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you guys, Emerson was on the cover of the April issue of our publication, and it reminded me of something I saw. If I could, I'll share my screen real quick just to share that. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
So she's using just a smartphone.
Yes, that's the beauty with this technology. But you see on the top, the asset monitor is installed and it's edge device. You can get data as closest as possible to the machine. You can install close to the machine and that's it. You can get data, you can transfer that data wirelessly. And what she is using is she's using this iPhone or a Samsung or Apple phone, and you can get all that information on your phone. So you have the asset health right on your hand, and you can, based on that, take some actions to plan your maintenance activities.
Very cool. You can, if you're interested, you can go to empoweringpumps.com and learn more about that and look at our publication. And again, that was the April issue, which is, you had the cover story, which is 4 pages of great information. But back to you, let's talk a little bit more about this. This is fascinating. It sounds like you could go on for days based on the history that you have with the company. What do you see as far as trending for the future? Anything new going on? Any new directions that you can share with us?
Absolutely. As I was talking about the challenges, really the challenges are people, they are not getting those experienced people, and more and more experienced people are leaving the industry. The new trend is more into the software, the development, and industry is really struggling to find people on the ground so that they can take rounds or do the checkup. So what we have noticed is industry is moving away from manual round, and we also uh, promoting that, because taking the data manually, that means you are moving people. It's a safety risk, it's expensive, and there's an environmental issue, and then you can only take certain amount of data. One person can take certain amounts of route, but in place of all this, you replace that with the different technology, like I was showing you, the wireless vibration monitor or asset monitor. You will get all this data anywhere you want. And that's the advantage which industry needs to take, and they are working. I mean, we have been talking to many customers, and some customers, they have the strategy, and some customers, they are still, lagging, and they are still working on that. And that comes the difference between a top performers and the low or bottom performer. For the top performers, they hate breakdowns. They always have a strategy how to avoid breakdowns. They plan their repairs. They use their predictive technologies. Their predictive technologies usage on their assets is really high. Their maintenance cost as compared to the low performance is low. I mean, I can share with you one screen also where
Sure.
it is shown on the
Please
top.
do.
Yeah.
I'm loving this. The screen shares actually, they help me visualize, and I hope with our viewers get the benefit of it as well. It's always better to have some type of visual aid as opposed to just talking through something. It just, to me, it just is immensely helpful.
Right. Yeah. So here I'm talking about the advantages which are top quartile performers or have as compared to the low performing. First of all, they spend a lot of money in maintenance. They spend a lot of money in stocking the parts because they don't have much of the predictive technologies. And all of a sudden they get information the machine has failed. Now the top performer, they have a reliability strategy, because the reliability strategy basically is increase the availability, and that helps in reducing the maintenance costs and increasing the profitability. So this is based on some of the studies we've done by Solomon and Emerson experts. The top quartile, they have 18 days additional as compared to the bottom quartile for production, because they don't have they have very less breakdowns. Their activities are planned, their maintenance, the manpower is planned, so they are not really wasting their resources, and they are getting 18 days additional in terms of production. And because of the less breakdown, they save around 40 million as a reduction on annual maintenance. Now this 40 million is on if you see, it's called a replacement asset value. For example, if you have a plant where the value of that plant to build a same new plant without considering the cost of the land and the building is $1 billion, that's called like a plant replacement value or the asset replacement value for if we talk about asset or plant. Now, if a plant value is 1 billion as a replacement, we are talking about 40 million saving. If the plant is 2 billion in terms of replacement asset value, then the saving will be 80 million. So the higher the cost of the replacement asset value, the higher will be the saving. And the same goes for the effective space stock. We can average the top performer, they save 22 million overspend on their capital projects. And that's again based on 1 billion replacement asset value plant. If it's 2 billion, then it will be double.
Right.
And the last, which is really important, is the personal safety. And let me share one statistics which was done by one of the, in the United States, one of the statistics US response center, that according to them, in normal, the process plant, the 10% of the time they spend in the transient process line, which means that during that 10% of the process time, either the machine is running low because of the equipment problem, or there is a downtime, and it's not a normal operation. So transient operation is really not a normal operation. Now, the problem is more than 50% of the safety incidents happen in that 10% of the transient time. What does it mean? If you reduce your transient time, if your operation is smooth, your breakdowns are reduced, your equipments are not running on low performance, and you have a smooth operation, that means your safety incidents will reduce. So that's why a reliable plant is a safe plant, and safe plant is a reliable plant. And there is another very famous book uh, by Ron Moore. This is called the Making Common Sense Common Practice, and he also proved that Ron Moore in that book that a reliable plant is a safe plant, and he has shown even the graph that when the plant availability and reliability improve, the safety incidents they decrease with the passage. So they go hand in hand on a
Interesting.
process plant.
Very interesting. I couldn't let this time with together go by without acknowledging the C word, and that's COVID, which had a incredible and interesting impact, at least from my perspective. We were what a couple of years ago now, but as we were getting acquainted with this virus that was, making its rounds, it became very concerning to people. What do I do? Do I send my men in there to check meters? And is there another way that I can, because the plant's still running, and, maybe they're running, alternate shifts and crews, but the concern really grew that, I need Louis to go in there and check a valve or a meter or a gauge, putting him at risk, so to speak. We just didn't know. But the need to be able to look at something from a distance, from the comfort of your home on your smartphone, seems to me to have grown. And I don't think we'll ever put that genie back in the bottle. Do you agree? You think it's just going to continue to trend where remote monitoring is here to stay and will continue to grow?
Absolutely agree. And I'll share two personal examples, one from industry and one from the banking. So, before COVID, we used to do banking. Mostly we go to the bank, and there was no concept of having a virtual call or doing online. I went to almost when we were in the pandemic, 6 to 8 months, finally the banks open, and I went to bank because I need to sign somewhere. And I was talking to that lady, and I said, really, you have really changed most of your stuff online in few months or few weeks. And she said that it's all because of COVID. And COVID has really speed up all the process. The approval which they used to take in years, because of the COVID making that virtual, the approval was within a days and week. So it basically accelerated the virtual and communication and making online stuff. Now, another example, one of our customers, we had been working with them on some of these technologies, and they were still in the process. Shall we buy this now, or we keep doing some manual? When this COVID hit, there were no people on the plant, and they immediately bought those asset monitor,
Right.
and as well as the wireless. And they're going to present some of those in Emerson User Exchange, that they got very quick return on investment because they install it, and they found by sitting in their room and in their office the problems, and just going to that machine when it's a problematic. And they were getting all this data. Even I personally talked to some customer, and I say, okay, where are you now? And he said, I'm working from home. I say, okay, how you are managing? He said, perfectly fine. Luckily, they were using Emerson vibration software, and they were able to log in from their server, and he was able to see machine health from his home office, and giving them instruction, issuing the work orders, sharing the information with the team on different internal their tools, that, okay, this machine has that problem and you don't need to do for this one. And really, with the help, of course, COVID as a pandemic, there was so many problem issues, but I would say the process industry has really moved very quickly in terms of making things online. And rather than taking the manual shift to the digital transformation of bringing the data to the person so that they can analyze. So that was a quick shift. And maybe I can share something. This came into my mind from, because you ask about the latest trend. What's really the latest trend? And you still see my screen, right, Finn?
Yes, sir.
Now, this is, we call like a current versus the new method. Even some of things related to the COVID, or let's say before COVID or not, most of the people, what they were doing were they were doing manual data collection. Then they were bringing into one centralized software. Then someone has to look into it. Most of the time, people who collect that information, they spend 6 hours in collecting, and then last 2 hours they have to analyze. They're so much tired, then they miss some of those things. And then finally, they start making those reporting and sending it to the system. So that was the process, and still it's there in some of the industries. I would not say most of the industry, but yes, it's still a good number of industries are still using. And now the trend is the people are moving the next step, which they want the data to come to them, not they go to the machine. So they are using different prescriptive analytic technologies. Like in this case, you can see the wireless vibration monitor or asset monitor or anything, and they just bring this data. Even they sometimes combine with the process data, and they get data on their phones, and then based on that, they can generate the reports. So all of this manual activity is reducing, which has to be reduced with the help of, we need to use these tools and technologies to bring this data. Another advantage is manual data collection is really like you are going to machine once in a month. And this, even if these tools are giving you information once a day, that is 30 times more than going to a machine once a month. And you can get even one reading a shift, 3 readings, scalar readings in a day, or you can also detect if you have a concern on the machine, you can also go and on demand do the collection. So that's really the industry trend. And people are also, I've noticed now, normally they are buying these predictive tools, vibration monitors and asset monitor in bulks, not in like 5 or 10 in thousands, because they see the value in it, and they are replacing some of those manual work with these pervasive sensors.
Yeah, I could just imagine getting that data on a daily basis. You could definitely establish some trends using these key performance indicator charts to determine your course of action as you move forward. So I definitely see that as a good thing. If you could stop sharing your screen for 1 second, I want to just ask you a couple of just questions. First of all, I can't believe it, but we've just blown through an hour of talking about this. It went by like that.
I mean, I can talk whole day. There are so many success stories and so many different. I've been working in 4 different countries. I probably in my bio, I normally write in. So I have exposure to all type of industries because I've been working in whether it's oil and gas, metal mining, cement, even in some of the chemical plants. So, and every industry, they have their own challenges. And there are so many success stories, so many challenges. And I'm so glad I'm in that position where we help customers to avoid these unplanned breakdowns and take them from low performing to the top quartile companies.
Yeah, I would imagine. Just kind of curious. Do you offer some kind of a training? Are there any training related events coming up in the future? And part 2 to that question is, do you have any trade shows that you'll be showing up at in the next 3 to 6 months? Maybe you can answer both of those.
Yeah, we have a calendar published on our Emerson website for the trainings. There are some of the trainings are certification trainings. If someone wants to take a path from vibration analyst category 1, 2, and 3, but there are general trainings also available. And now we also have virtual trainings. If company, they don't want people to send, which is not really easy sometimes to take all 5 or 6 people out of the plant. So during this COVID, we really added more and more virtual training than they can learn by sitting in their office or from
Great.
home, and we do virtual training.
Perfect.
We completed last 2 weeks, we were really traveling. We went to Charlotte in North Carolina, and last week we were in Houston and Corpus Christi. I posted those some of the links to register on the LinkedIn, and we have completed 3 road shows. We are planning to do some in June, and then July and August will be slow because of the vacation, and then we are planning to do some more road shows in September, October. And normally whenever there is any roadshow or customer training or customer events where we go and talk about technology, normally I post those links on the LinkedIn so people can get and immediately register, and also they can.
Where are you guys going to be in June? Are you going to go to ESA or some other show? Where are you going to be?
June, we are most likely will be doing something in Houston. We are planning some internal.
Okay.
We have some internal planning sessions, and we are also working with our near New York area. In that area, Pittsburgh, we are planning some events either end of June or in July.
Right.
So not yet finalized, but yes, we have a plan to do these roadshows in the next 6 months.
Yeah, well, definitely keep us posted. If I could, I'd like to give you a shameless plug on my end. I'll share my screen real quick. We've got something coming up near the Houston area. I just wanted to share that with you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so we have something called Epic in 2022. This is something just for our viewers. November 14th and 15th at San Jacinto College in Pasadena, which, as you know, is basically next door to Houston.
Right.
And
yes.
They have a wonderful facility out there, and it's just something that I believe that if anybody is interested in meeting up, it's a perfect environment for everybody from manufacturers, distributors, and end users, associations, and students to gather to truly learn. We're hosting it. EPIC stands for Empowering Pumps and Industry Conference. And, if I'd love to just mention that and invite you to come if you have the opportunity. Certainly oil and gas and other industries will be represented there. So just think about it. If you're in the Texas area anyway, give me a shout.
Yeah,
but certainly keep us posted as your other things develop, and maybe we can talk about those a little bit more too.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure. I mean, I really, I came in kind of blank slate, wanting you to just sort of share just a little bit about what you do, and I think you got a lot of good information here. And Emerson, as we know, is a huge company. I'm sure you could spend days on just giving me all the different business verticals and silos that they have available. But it was a real pleasure just to learn about PeakVue and a little bit about yourself. And I wish you continued success. Is there anything you want to, last parting comments to our viewers? How can they get in touch with you?
You can, I think I'm not sure we are connected through LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is the best way to connect. You just write Asad Malik Emerson, it will pop up. My email address is also asad.malik@emerson.com. I'm absolutely, LinkedIn is really the first thing to connect over there.
Yeah.
And and by the way, many of my customers and many of my friends, they know me. I'm also a sportsman. I love sports. I'm still playing. I played first class cricket. Now I'm playing tennis in Knoxville because it's very popular in states. So I have so many other stories. Maybe some other time we can talk about some sports stories and how those are connected to the plant and building the teams and working with different people and culture.
I'd love to hear more. I'd love to hear more about it. Like I said, it's always, we just try to keep it casual and light, and it's been a real joy, Asad. I want to thank you again for your time. And if you would, folks, if you like this video, please click like and subscribe and share it with your friends. And stay tuned. We'll have more coming soon. Asad, thank you. Give my best to everybody at Emerson. Take care. Bye-bye.